Paul do then? That's what we're looking at. What did he do? There he is, he's blind. He's been there 3 days, he's had this vision, and so he's just waiting. He's just waiting for this man to come along. Then Ananias went to the house and entered it. Placing his hands on Saul, he said, "Brother Saul." You know, Ananias did what the Lord said. Think about it from Ananias' point of view. There was this person he was probably been absolutely scared stiff, but went a mile from. The Lord said, "You go." And he goes. And the first word he uses is brother. "Brother Saul, the Lord, Jesus, who appeared to you on the road as you were coming here, has sent me so that you may see again and be filled with the Holy Spirit." Immediately, something like scales fell from Saul's eyes, and he got up again. And he could see again, He got up and was baptized. And after taking some food, he regained his strength, and Saul spent several days with the disciples in Damascus. He just spent a week there, 10 days, maybe 2 weeks, who knows? That's all he spent there. Why? Where did he go after that? Well, anyway, before we answer that question, what did Paul do during those several days? Well, this is the most staggering thing of all. At once, he began to preach in the synagogues that Jesus is the Son of God. Straight away. Immediately. Why? How? He'd been opposing this. He didn't like it when Stephen said it. Oh, stone him. He'd gone to synagogues, having people put in prison, and beaten, and put to death because they were saying this. How could all of a sudden he say that Jesus is the Son of God? And those who heard him were astonished and asked, "Isn't he the man who raised havoc in Jerusalem among those who call on his name? And hasn't he come here to take them as prisoners to the high priests?" Yet Saul grew more and more powerful and baffled the Jews living in Damascus by proving that Jesus is the Christ, the Messiah. So here he is. The very things that he was opposed to, he objected to, he looked upon them as heretics, the things that he thought were blasphemous, he is now preaching. How could he so quickly do an about turn? Was it solely the vision of Christ? I don't mean to be that in any disparaging way, because that must have been an incredible vision. But by proving that Jesus is the Christ. Now, how on earth could he prove to the Jews in Damascus that Jesus was the Christ? How could he do it? There's only one way he can do it, and that's from the Scriptures. And it tells us in other passages that that's what he actually did. He tried to prove from the Scriptures that Jesus is the Son of God. That's what he was doing. And so I think we have to recognize this, that Paul obviously was a mighty Pharisee. He knew his Scriptures. He knew his Old Testament. Right? He knew what the Christian Jews were saying. He knew what those followers of Jesus were saying. And it all slotted into place. Just like that. It slotted into place. Bum, 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 bum. And so he could see all those Levitical passages which talked about the sacrifices and the offerings. He could see that they were shadows. They were types. The reality was Christ. He could see all those prophecies talking about what the Messiah would do, what God would do when he visited people. That's what Jesus did. What did Isaiah say? The lame will leap, the blind will see, the deaf will hear. Right? That's exactly the miracles that Jesus did. That's the ones that's recorded in the Scriptures for us. There's no record of Jesus healing backache or postnatal depression. Whether he did or not, I have no idea. He might well have done, but it's not recorded for us. Because that's not what the prophet said the Messiah would do. They record the miracles, the healing miracles that Isaiah prophesied the Messiah would do. And so here he is proving that Jesus is the Son of God, that Jesus is the Messiah. And the interesting thing is that if you look at John chapter 20, Sil, do you want to read this for us? If you look at John chapter 20, verses 30 to 31.
Jesus did many other miraculous signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not recorded in this book. But these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name.
Thank you. So here you have, we've just been talking about this person, John. He wrote his gospel for the sole purpose of trying to convince his readers that Jesus is the Christ, Jesus is the Son of God. And this is Paul's main ministry to the Jews during the book of the Acts. Is trying to prove that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God. Jesus is the Messiah. Because we forget, many times I forget, that Christ actually means Messiah. This is what he was doing. Well, what did Paul do after the several days were up? Where did he go? Well, this is what Galatians tells us. For you have heard of my previous way of life in Judaism, how intensely I persecuted the church of God and tried to destroy it. I was advancing in Judaism beyond many Jews of my own age and was extremely zealous for the traditions of my father. Again, I don't think this is Paul boasting, because he's now going to undermine what he's saying there. That's why I take this as absolute truth. He was advancing in Judaism beyond his years, beyond many Jews of my own age. I would probably think beyond all of them, probably. But when God, who set me apart from birth and called me by his grace, was pleased to reveal his Son in me so that I may preach him among the Gentiles, I did not consult any man. In Damascus he was blind for 3 days. Ananias laid hands on him, and immediately he started to preach that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God. I did not consult any man, nor did I go up to Jerusalem to see those who were apostles before I was. He didn't go back to Jerusalem. I don't think he could have gone back to Jerusalem, could he really? If you think about it. I mean, who would he go to? I mean, could he go back to the high priest? What was he going to do? I went immediately into Arabia and later returned to Damascus. So the first thing he does is he goes off after several days, after 10 days, 2 weeks, wherever it was, into Arabia, and sometimes later he came back. Arabia is to the east. It's the kingdom of the Nabateans. Now, the kingdom of the Nabateans is, as you can see it, it's all around here. There's Damascus. There's the kingdom of the Nabateans. That's where he went. I don't have one. Let's do this one. So what did he do there, and why did he go there? Why go to that place? Well, it's strange. Paul did not go home to Tarsus. If you think about it, there's a very good reason why he wouldn't go home to Tarsus. His family had paid for him to go to Jerusalem to sit at the feet of Gamaliel. They had a son they were very proud of. Very, very proud of this son. This son was advancing in Judaism beyond many of his own age. They were sitting at home being very proud of their son, thinking he's going to be a member of the Sanhedrin soon. Could be the youngest member of the Sanhedrin. Could be the youngest member of the Sanhedrin there's ever been. That's how Paul, isn't it? I can't go home. I can't go home to Tarsus. What am I going to tell him? He didn't go back to Jerusalem. Why not? Well, what's Annas? What's the high priest going to say? What's the Sanhedrin going to say? I mean, I'm a Christian. They'll put me in prison. They'll beat me. They'll put me to death. I can't go back to Jerusalem. So he went into Arabia. Why? Why did he choose Arabia? Was he led by the Spirit? Was he taught by the Spirit? The Bible does not say so. That's the usual view, is that he was led by the Spirit into Arabia. Now, quite clearly in Acts at certain times, and we'll see these, he is led by the Spirit, or he's prevented by the Spirit to do something. But here, he just decides to go into Arabia. The Bible actually gives us no reason as to why Paul went into Arabia. So why did he go? I don't really know. But the interesting thing is, what did Paul do there? What did he actually do in Arabia? Well, if you ask me, the usual view, or not the usual view, the view of some people is Paul goes off into Arabia. 3 years, we'll find that that's what he does. He spends about 3 years there, meditating. Now, Paul does not strike me as a meditative sort of person. Not in the least. Whatever you say about Paul, he is studious and action. Those two words, he's a student and he's a man of action. And it seems to me that Paul started to fulfill this role of preaching Christ very soon after he was converted. Some have suggested that Paul's exodus from Damascus and his 3-year stay in Arabia was so that the Holy Spirit could teach him. However, as well as this, Arabia may have been Paul's first missionary excursion. And I develop that more, if you want to, in Galatians, because obviously Paul says quite a bit about that in Galatians. So he goes off to into Arabia. Now, how well did he do there? Well, usual sort of problems that dear old Paul runs into. We know the problems that Paul ran into in his later missionary journeys. That was nothing new. He ran into the same problems in his trip into Arabia. The governor under King Aretas had the city of the Damascenes guarded in order to arrest me. But I was lowered in a basket from a window in the wall and slipped through his hands. So somehow or other, dear old Paul had, as we would say, got up the nose of the governor. Why? What had he done to cause the governor to send orders to the city of Damascus to tell them to kill Paul? So Paul had been down here. Paul had been down somewhere around here. I got absolutely no idea why. Where exactly, sorry. He'd been down in that region, and obviously the governor wants to get him. The governor wants to arrest him. And so dear Paul goes back to Damascus. But he wasn't safe in Damascus at this point in time, because Aretas was in fact king of the Nabateans from 9 BC to AD 40. But between AD 37 and AD 54 there are no Damascus coins bearing a Roman emperor's image. So at that period of time, Damascus was not under the Romans. It was not under the Romans. It is possible that Gaius granted the city of Damascus to Aretas in AD 37. In AD 37. And there's more information there in the New Bible Dictionary if you want to look it up. This suggests that the incident referred to in 2 Corinthians 11, that's the incident about Paul being in Damascus and the king wanting to get him arrested and him being lowered down in Damascus, took place between AD 37 and AD 40. So that's a pretty good handle, because people often want to know, we are very much creatures of time, aren't we? Us of the Western society want to know how long, when, and everything like this, don't we? Many people in the world don't operate by clocks. Even many people today. In many Oriental countries, in many African countries, time is irrelevant. And certainly when you go back to the Bible times, I do wish they would record times. But why do I wish it? Because that's my nature. That's what I like to know. But here we can fix on something. If Christ's death and resurrection was about AD 29, AD 30, as most people suggest, somewhere around about by there, you can see all these things by this point in time, something like 8, 9, 10 years had gone by. 8, 9, 10 years had gone by since our Lord's death and resurrection. So, questions? Why had Paul upset Aretas, or the governor? Did the order come strongly from the governor, or did it come from the king previously? It seems to me that the only reason I can think of was that we know that after Solomon's reign, the people of Israel split into two. The northern kingdom of the 10 tribes and the southern kingdom of the 2 tribes. We know that in the course of time, the Assyrians came and conquered the northern kingdom and took them into exile. And probably a century later, the southern kingdom also were conquered and taken into exile, this time by the Babylonians. Now, I can pick this up now. Now, Babylon is way over here, quite a long way over there. And basically, they weren't just taken to Babylon, they were scattered around the Babylonian Empire. This is what they did. To defuse troublemakers, they scattered them. So some of them were scattered all over the Babylonian Empire, so some of them would have been scattered down here. Now we know after eventually the Babylonians were conquered by the Medo-Persians, and we do know that in the end the Medo-Persians allowed the Jews to go back to Jerusalem, to rebuild the city and to rebuild the temple. Allowed them to go back, that is if they wanted to. They didn't have to go back. And many of them did not go back. If you read in Acts chapter 2 about where the Jews came from, they came actually to the day of Pentecost, you will find that many of them came from places way over here, right over there, from the old Babylonian Empire. They had never returned. They had set up their businesses, they settled into their communities, they worked out through synagogues how they could worship God and come to terms with it, although perhaps it wasn't as great as living in Jerusalem and worshipping God in the temple, but they come to terms with it. And so there were lots of Jews probably. There were probably a number of synagogues around this region. So what do you think Paul did? He'd go into the synagogue, wouldn't he? He tried to persuade them that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God. But this may have been totally new territory. Because when we read about those Jews at Jerusalem on the day of Pentecost, we don't get any mention from this region. We don't get any mention from this region. So he may have been going into totally fresh areas. And he was obviously meeting some opposition. We know that he met oppositions in many of the synagogues that he went to later on. I would suggest that he met opposition in many of the synagogues. He tried to persuade the Jews there that Jesus was the Christ, the Son of God. So what did the Jews do? Well, they were obviously quite influential people. We know that they were tremendously influential right in Babylon, the capital. I mean, the Babylonian Talmud, which was written some years later, I think, was an incredible document of Judaism. One of the defining documents of Judaism even to today. Written by Jews outside the land. These people were influential. We have to remember how Daniel and company influenced those leaders in his day. The Medo-Persians were influenced by the Jews. And we remember about the wise men that came to look for the infant Jesus. You know, were these Gentiles or were these Jews? I think they were Jews. There were still Jews who were wise men in the court of the Babylonians in New Testament times. These people had access to some of the top leaders. And it seems to me that some of the Jews in this region had access either to the governor or even perhaps King Aretas himself. Probably just the governor, I don't know, maybe the king. So they had probably gone and complained about Paul. So this is probably what the governor said. They may not have had the power to arrest Paul and do anything to him, but they went to the people who did have power and he said, right, let's arrest him. Now where was he going to escape to? Could he now go home to Tarsus? He'd been 3 years. 3 years, and his parents got any news of him? They knew that he had gone to Damascus. And it got reported back to his parents what had happened in Damascus? Or should he go to Jerusalem? Should Jerusalem be his first port of call? Well, Paul, I think, decided that he would go back to Jerusalem. Anyway, in Damascus, after many days had gone by, the Jews conspired to kill him, he says. But Saul learned of their plan. Day and night they kept close watch on the city gates in order to kill him. But his followers took him by night and lowered him in a basket through an opening in the wall. That's what he says in Acts. What does he say in Galatians? Then after 3 years I went up to Jerusalem to get acquainted with Peter and stayed with him 15 days. Acts says after many days had gone by, the Jews conspired to kill him, but Saul learned of their plan. Day and night they kept close watch on the city gates in order to kill him. But his followers took him by night and lowered him in a basket through an opening in the wall when he came to Jerusalem. You have two passages which describe the same event. One passage says it was 3 years, another passage says it was many days. Which is right? Was it 3 years or was it many days? Again, this is where we get hooked up on time. Does 3 years equal many days? Well, we would like it to be, wouldn't it? And again, what we are having is the problem of our idea of time. Many days to us is not 3 years. But if you look in the book of Kings, you will get the same event talked about there. In one verse it's talked about as many days, and the next verse is talked about at the end of 3 years. And Shimei said to the king, the saying is good, as my lord the king hath said. So will thy servant do. And Shimei dwelt in Jerusalem many days. And it came to pass at the end of 3 years that two of the servants of Shimei ran away unto Achish, son of Maachah, king of Gath.